Activating Unfilter live stream sequence. Episode 280. Pre-show is commencing. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Unfilter pre-show. All of those who didn't join us a little early on our Off the Books JB Live TV stream, we greet you with open arms. Hell of a week this week. Glad you could be here with us. The show's going to kick off in just a couple of moments. Mr. Chase is already en route. We got to get going.
Because I want to win.
I just can't.
Fuck the EU.
We may need some faith healers.
I think there's only a few duties left to do, so we should get started with the overtime. If you would like to bang suggest, we have JBot back up and running again. Let me start the title suggestions. If you're not in our IRC chat room, if you're watching over on YouTube, we do have the dedicated IRC at irc.geekshed.net. Pound Unfilter for this show. And that's the chat room we're watching during the show. I've noticed, though, that there are a lot of people chatting on the YouTubes. In the chat over there. I sometimes go back and check that, but I can't really watch it during the show. Sure. Oops, typoed that. So, yeah, sorry about missing that. But if you do want to get in the actual conversation, like the one that is up on screen, like what you'll see right there, boom. That chat room right there is irc.geekshed.net. And then it is Pound Unfilter for the Unfilter chat and Jupiter Broadcasting for the main Jupiter Broadcasting chat. Old stuff that never gets cleaned up, etc., same old story. I get messages right as I'm trying to start all the time. I really should just close Telegram. All right, because otherwise I'll just keep answering them because I don't want to leave people hanging. I don't want to leave them hanging. Yeah, you think so? Now, why do you think so, Omnipotence? Because I'm always open to people's ideas. I don't really feel like switching back to Discord again, but Omnipotence in the chat room says that Discord worked better for this show. It may be, yeah, maybe. I could see that actually. He says not all geeks. This show's not just a show for geeks. And I actually thought this show did get pretty good traction at almost all the shows in Discord. I really don't have any problem with Discord itself. I just I want one place to focus. And if we ever go to a point where we automate some of the live streaming, like, you know, this window I keep flashing up here of the frame in the chat room, there's really no reason that needs to be done handmade with graphics and screen capture. Right now, I make that frame. I have a template, and I edit a template, and I export a PNG every week for that frame. And then we're screen capping a Quasel X11 session on the broadcast machine to get the chat room in there. But we could procedurally generate all of that. So that was one of the things that pushed us back towards IRC, is down the road that could give us some options to automate some of the OBS functionality. But I don't know if we'll ever do it. All right, let's get started. It is time for the Unfilter show. Please, bang, suggest. Yeah, Matrix is another possibility in the future. That might be the better direction to go. Okay, let's do the Unfilter stuff, huh? What do you say, chaps? What do you say? We got a lot of names this week. That's awesome. Let's get to see how I do. Aloran, Rags. Just a couple of curveballs in there. And Nico.jpg. All right. Okay, here we go. It's the Unfilter Overtime, and it begins in 3, in 2. Stand by one. I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The show's not over yet. No. It's overtime! Brought to you by our patrons at patreon.com/unfiltered.
And I know that each of you understand you have the power. Stay woke!
Who, me? No, you. Thank you to our patrons. We've got new ones this week. Oh, yeah! Thank you to Sir Charles, Katrina, or Lauren? I'm going to just go way off on that one. Regs, Eric, Travis, Wayne, Matthew, Chad, Anna, and Nico.jpg. That's a unique one. Thank you for being our new patrons this week. You know it matters more than ever right now, as we've recently discovered about 100 accounts were not current. And so the new support helps offset some of that. Really appreciate it. Thank you guys very much. This here segment dedicated to you. Dedicated to you for being so damn awesome. All of our current patrons, future patrons, and anybody who just wants a little extra content, loves the show. This segment is dedicated to you, and thank you to our new patrons for keeping us going. It is much appreciated. You are the oil of our otherwise clunky old machine. I don't know where I was going with that, and I should have thought that through before I opened the old mouth. But when did that ever stop me before? Let's move on and talk about spies and cyber espionage in one of the world's most popular centers. It's obviously the target of nation states, people in their grandma's basement, and script kiddies all over the world. And of course, I'm talking about Wisconsin.
When that flashlight happens, people lose their jobs.
You're looking at real-time cyber attacks happening every second.
Those little virtual nuclear explosions are hitting Milwaukee, they're hitting Sheboygan, they're hitting Green Bay.
Byron Franz, a special agent in the FBI's Milwaukee division.
I'm going to pause right here. Let's break down what's already happened, because this is thick. So a local WISN ABC affiliate is talking to an FBI field agent, and up on a really crappy low-quality LCD television, they have the FireEye, or whoever it is, live threat map. You know, that flash thing that has little pew, 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 pew going off on it. And they're talking about how that's representative of cyber nukes.
Again, they're hitting Green Bay.
Byron Franz, a special agent in the FBI's Milwaukee division, works daily to keep local businesses safe from spies.
This is really a hot spot.
Yes, it is. Wisconsin is definitely known to the people who want to steal.
All right. Okay. So what's about to happen, and I just need to mentally prepare you for this, is they're going to build the case that Wisconsin is one of the most attacked places in not the state, I mean, not the country, but the world. Wisconsin is the target of the world because why? Because this guy has a budget. That's why.
A hotspot.
Yes, it is. Wisconsin is definitely known to the people who want to steal technology because Wisconsin makes the things that makes the engine of the United States go.
Now she's going to give us some examples.
So think about it. With all of our major manufacturers, hospitals, universities, and financial institutions.
You mean the things that every single city in the United States has? So she's standing outside of a U.S. bank. She's standing outside of a generic basic bitch hospital, and she just generically mentions manufacturing, which are things every single country and just about every single nation have in common.
Hospitals, universities, and financial institutions. Wisconsin is one of the biggest targets in the country. Global spies are stealing information, costing companies money and jobs.
So the Chinese hackers, Russian hackers, Iranian hackers, even US hackers, they take this information, send an email over to you, and hope that you click on the attachment.
This is the real cyber dystopia that we now live in, is simple acts like let me back up. Simple acts like email phishing are now labeled as cyber nuke attacks that are going after our industry, that require a permanent FBI presence to monitor and tackle. Phishing emails, which can be generated by shitty Python scripts and sent out at the millions. This is truly a dystopia where the morons who don't even understand how this stuff works are now running the institution. And this is what we get.
Send an email over to you and hope that you click on the attachment.
I received this phishing email.
Yep.
I click on it. And
Email has literally been around for more than 30 years, and attachments have been around for more than 20 years. This is nothing new. You can go back to ZDTV and watch a young Leo Laporte advise you not to open attachments back in the 90s. Nothing is new about this.
Hope that you click on the attachment.
I received this phishing email.
Yep.
I click on it, and that could cost my employer millions of dollars potentially.
Yeah, and your job too.
An Energies Technologies company, AMSC, shut down its Middleton plant after a Chinese company stole software. More than 700 people lost their jobs.
You see, what a corporation uses as a public excuse for their actions can't be cited as evidence. It can be a data point. So you can say, all right, XYZ Corporation at one point claimed they were shutting down because of a cyber attack. You can say that, but you can't say it's with absolute certainty. Just like in the case of the Sony attack, where it was clearly an internal leak because they knew the exact UNC paths of the Windows file servers, down to like the exact directory structures, the file permissions. You don't just come across that kind of stuff. These people knew that stuff. They knew how to get those files, and then they took them out on thumb drives. And it's clear that's what happened. But publicly, for insurance reasons, PR reasons, and many others, publicly, Sony blamed North Korean hackers. You remember the interview? Remember that whole thing around the interview? That was all bullshit. It was all bullshit. It was an internal leak at Sony. You can even find people involved who on YouTube who are talking about it, including Seth Rogen. But publicly, they still maintain it was a cyber attack by North Korea. So you can't take that as proof. You can take it in as a data point. Again, you can remember that Sony claimed that a movie was taken out of the theaters due to a cyber attack by North Korea. You can make a data point that a plant had to shut down because Chinese hackers stole trade secrets that somehow impacted their market in Wisconsin. You can use that as a data point, but you can't claim it to be 100% true. It adds to the bullshit hype factor.
When that flashlight happens, people lose their jobs.
You're looking at real-time cyber attacks happening every second.
Those little virtual nuclear explosions are hitting Milwaukee, they're hitting Sheboygan, they're hitting Green Bay.
See, when you take this hyperbole and you combine it with the blatant smearing of facts, what you end up with is essentially propaganda.
Shut down its Middleton plant after a Chinese company stole software. More than 700 people lost their jobs. One of the FBI's top priorities is keeping our Fortune 500 companies like Northwestern Mutual, Harley-Davidson, Oshkosh, and Kohl's secure.
There's your big industries. And so the FBI is going to protect Harley-Davidson there from phishing emails Because that's what got John Podesta, right?
And that's in front of violent street gangs, fraud, and all this other stuff we do.
The FBI building in St.
Money.
Francis has a dedicated cyber squad. The room is so classified they wouldn't let us anywhere near it. Franz says the simplest way to protect your job is to take annual security training sessions seriously.
You can't rely on some woman in IT or a guy guarding the door to be protecting your job.
In his attempt to be non-sexist, he actually sounds more sexist right there. Some woman, you can't...
Or a guy guarding the door to be protecting your job. Wisconsin companies losing productivity, losing their competitiveness on the world stage because somebody clicked on an email or an attachment or visited an infected website.
A risk not worth taking. In St. Francis, I'm Adrienne Pedersen, WISN 12 News.
Why isn't the FBI working with these corporations to implement best practices? Because simple network best practices would prevent all of this. Obviously, at the email level, at the server level, before it even gets into the user's inbox, you have it scanned and you have it analyzed. There's lots of solutions, tons of commercial and tons of free ones, some that are really good and some that suck, where you could take care of a lot of that stuff at the edge. But once you get into the LAN, these things should be segmented. Proper file permissions and proper use of user accounts is all it takes to prevent a massive phishing exploit that runs over your network. Think about it for a second. If you double-click an attachment, that attachment only has the permissions that the user account that is executing the attachment has. It can only do what the user executing the attachment can do. Simple. Because it's running within the context of that user account. So if you have proper network file permissions on your file servers, if you isolate data out correctly, if you don't allow your end users to run as administrator, if you have certain aspects of your firewall, or you have certain aspects of your web server and your database servers on different networks, maybe behind a firewall or on at least a different VLAN, network segmentation can help a lot. Proper authentication, proper user account management, and proper file permissions. That's the only thing required to properly secure your network from one of these supposed phishing attacks that now requires a dedicated FBI division to monitor in Wisconsin. And you know that's everywhere. You know that's everywhere. Simple, basic bitch procedures that have been implemented since networks were invented. Well, that's not true. But for a long time now, since I've been in high school, which is unfortunately becoming a longer and longer time. This is not new information. I've designed my own network that way. That's all it takes. It doesn't take all this hype. It just takes clear, easy to understand instructions that could be easily audited. That could be something the FBI could offer. They could offer, just like the DHS offers to audit the election systems of states. The FBI could offer to audit the computer systems of certain companies that request it, maybe even get a little money out of it. Maybe they could stop taking so many damn tax dollars, and they could do that. And it would actually accomplish something. But instead we get this fear-mongering with the stupid, with the Hunt for Red October sound effects. I love it. All right, well, have you noticed that we haven't heard from Julian Assange much recently? What do you suppose that's about?
Julian Assange is reportedly facing new limitations that include bans on phone calls and even visitors. According to WikiLeaks, the whistleblowing group he co-founded, the restrictions come as his fate is being negotiated by UK and Ecuadorian authorities.
His internet access is still blocked. We have had talks. We're interested in solving this issue. Assange is aware that Ecuador is exhausting all efforts by diplomatic means.
That sounds bad. So the U.S. is pressuring, his internet's been cut off, and Ecuador is exhausting all diplomatic means. Those are not good things, so I wonder where that's going to develop. It seems like a pressure campaign is building. And there is another kind of pressure campaign building, one against the White House for comments that were made about John McCain behind the scenes. And ladies and gentlemen, I introduce you to the #1 story that pissed me off this week.
Well, first of all, the president just rolled out what he calls his blueprint to reduce the cost of prescription drugs.
Now, let's stop here. I think part of this McCain controversy has simply been to distract from something positive about Donald Trump. By focusing on John McCain, they don't have to talk about the prescription drug pricing plan that Donald Trump has, his prescription for America. So these segments that the news companies had gotten ready were originally going to be to discuss the new prescription plan. But once a new breaking story happens, they can jump onto that. So she was initially queued up to talk about the prescription drug plan that Trump announced, but instead is now able to pivot to the new controversy because, well, a new shiny.
The president just rolled out what he calls his blueprint to reduce the cost of prescription drugs, an issue on the minds of many midterm voters. Included in that is a plan to speed up the approval of cheaper generic drugs. But the White House has its own bitter pill to swallow.
I do appreciate the fact that they are mowing the lawn while the Today Show is attempting to do an on-location spot, because if anybody's listened to JB shows for a long time and ever tuned in live, you know in the summer times I constantly get trolled because there's two different contractors who the housing community here has hired out to manage the yard. And so one day one of them shows up and he mows his part of the lawn, and then the next day the other one shows up and he mows his part. And so it's like back-to-back mowing sometimes. And I love that. I'm like, of course, I'm some Arlington podcaster. Of course I'm going to have these kinds of problems. I can't throw any weight around. Nobody cares about me. But this is NBC and this is the Today Show, and it still happens to them.
For generic drugs, but the White House has its own bitter pill to swallow over the harsh controversy about what a staffer said about John McCain.
Oh, the harsh controversy. Oh, what could it be? Oh.
Fallout over an insult.
I'm not going to validate a leak out of an internal staff meeting one way or the other.
The White House refused to attempt damage control after staffer Kelly Sadler's derisive comment in a meeting that ailing John McCain's opposition to CIA director nominee Gina Haspel did not matter.
You imagine how this goes down, right? They're all in a meeting, sitting around and like, yeah, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to talk about this? John McCain's going to push back against her. What are we going to do about that? And somebody goes, ugh, McCain again. You mean Mr. Dossier delivery boy? God, who cares? He's going to die soon because the man's got brain cancer.
Opposition to CIA director nominee Gina Haspel did not matter because he's dying anyway. McCain's daughter, Megan, reacted Friday.
Megan, who sits in what is called the definition of the white privilege chair. I mean, this woman has nothing to offer other than the legacy of her father, who she says will be remembered for hundreds of years. What exactly would that legacy be for John McCain? Because I could tell you what we've covered in the show, and it's war, 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 war. So what is this great legacy?
I don't understand what kind of environment you're working in when that would be acceptable, and then you can come to work the next day and still have a job.
Oh, I do. It's called The View, because you guys do that kind of shit all the time on The View.
What kind of environment you're working in when that would be acceptable, and then you can come to work the next day and still have a job.
Sanders did confirm Sadler still works in the Trump White House.
Yes, she does.
The backup for McCain, who is battling brain cancer, was swift and bipartisan. Joe Biden said in a statement, as he fights for his life, he deserves better.
This really shows you that we have one party. We have the corporatists. We have the big interest party. And then we have everybody else. Because the love for McCain is gross. He's an awful person. He's a bad person. What is John... Somebody tell me what... Somebody in the IRC room right now tell me what John McCain's so great for. I mean, I'm not talking about speaking ill of people who are dying. I would avoid that whenever possible. But let's stop pretending like he's some sort of great hero. He got captured. He spilled the beans completely. He eventually got released. He failed to ever actually win the presidency, despite his pathetic attempts. And he seems to have been a big special interest for the military in Israel his entire time he was in office. So the one thing that he promised for the people was a la carte cable. That was John McCain's big thing for the little people, and he never even got that done.
Joe Biden said in a statement, as he fights for his life, he deserves better. Ohio Governor John Kasich made a video.
The comments by a White House staffer in regard to John McCain were just outrageous.
Yeah, it's really a shame because you'd hope for more from Kasich, right? Like, shut up and get your work done. Really? How is this helping America? How does this improve the country by piling on like this?
Totally out of line.
Arizona Senator Jeff Flake.
Something that is this bad, you ought to just apologize and get past it.
Every one of these monsters knows that this was an intentional leak out of that White House designed to attack this person. Everybody knows that. Every one of these people is politically savvy enough to realize that, and they're still exploiting the situation. And they know it could have been them. because it's the game of politics.
So I don't think that it was handled well.
Turning to the Michael Cohen investigation, where regrets flowed from AT&T's top executive after the company paid Trump's personal lawyer $600,000. There is no other way to say it. AT&T hiring Michael Cohen as a political consultant was a big mistake.
Fuck the EU. The White House did respond to questions about Cohen receiving payments from corporations like AT&T. Sarah Sanders claimed that shows that the president cannot be influenced by special interests because his administration opposed the merger of AT&T and Time Warner, while his personal lawyer Cohen was being paid by AT&T.
Wow, I think it just shows they didn't pay enough, but what do I know? Moving on, because, let's talk about special interest and that White House. Let's talk about Bolton. So John Bolton has been stepping in it recently. That's why North Korea is so upset, and it was all actually in this interview I'm about to play for you. Now, the thing is I don't want to play the whole thing. I would lose my mind, but I do want to play the first bit about the Iran sanctions questions that Tapper asked Bolton, because this was my point last week. We have spent 12 to 15 years applying international sanctions between our European partners, China, and the rest of the world, really leveraging all of our economic sanctions together to apply radical pressure to Iran to get them into this deal that Kerry and Obama and everybody finally got through. Now that the U.S. has pulled out of the Iran deal and is going to reapply sanctions, we're going at it alone. We don't have that massive world lever anymore. It's just us. Now, that's still a pretty big lever because we have, A, a huge economy, B, we have a ton of patents and other ways that we can go after companies that are using our technology and still selling to Iran, so that's a very big lever, and we have the good old U.S. greenback. So you can kind of see maybe there's a strategy that the White House is working, but even all of that said, it seems like a huge long shot because it obviously took all of those other countries getting in on the sanctions pile for it to actually work because that lever that we've had has only gotten weaker. So it still seems like a crapshoot, at best a gamble, more like a long play for war, and the possibility of sanctions working is just a smokescreen of an attempt to bring them back to the table, when the reality is it's an aggressive act of war. But here is John Bolton attempting to explain how it's going to work.
I want to start with the Iran deal. It took a decade of worldwide sanctions against Iran to get Iran to come to the table to make this deal, which I know you and the president feel is inadequate. Can you explain to me how you're going to be able to get Iran to agree to a new, tougher deal without the participation in sanctions of China and Russia and Europe?
Well, I think you have to start first with the fundamental deficiencies of the deal itself. It would not stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. Quite the contrary, it provided cover for Iran to continue its efforts. And if it had continued, it would have given Iran extraordinary economic benefits without any guarantees of Iranian performance. So the rationale for getting out of the deal is that it was contrary to American national security interest when we entered into it, and it hadn't gotten any better with age.
Can I just poke for 1 second? When you say it provided cover for them to create a nuclear program, you're talking about the sunset provisions that allow Iran, I'm just seeking clarity here, that allow Iran in 7 or 8 years to commence again a nuclear energy program?
Well, I think the sunset provisions were clearly a mistake, but I think Iran had never made a strategic decision to give up nuclear weapons. I think it was testing the limits of the deal's provisions, exceeding them in some cases. Its ballistic missile program, which continued essentially unchecked, was proof that what they were seeking was delivery systems for the nuclear weapons. So the president has to make a decision where America's national interests lie, and it did not lie in continuing this deal. Now, the consequence of the United States getting out of it is to reimpose all American sanctions as they were before the deal came into effect. And I think what we've seen is that Iran's economic condition is really quite shaky, so that the effect here could be dramatic. And I think there's another important point here that the president has made. Because of the deal, Iran was able to take advantage of turmoil in the region to advance its interest all across the Middle East, in Iraq, in Syria, in Lebanon, in Yemen, so that the consequences of being able to sell Iranian oil without restriction on the international market were providing them resources not just for their nuclear program, not just as the world's central banker of international terrorism, but conventional hostilities across the region as well.
Okay. That's a good line right there. The international banker of terrorism, which is really us. Come on. Let's talk about money for a moment and terrorism. So I just briefly mentioned it recently that the U.S. was pulling out funding for the white helmets. Well, there is a congressman who is asking to resume funding of these controversial white helmets. White helmets, I don't think, would even try to claim that they're impartial. And actually, I think defunding them was one of the better moves Trump has made recently when it comes to the Middle East. One in a series of others that I don't agree with, but the issue is up for debate.
A congressman has asked the Trump administration to resume its funding of the controversial Syrian activist group, the White Helmets. Reports of Washington cutting money to the group emerged a week ago though no confirmation has been issued so far. RT's Caleb Maupin dug deeper into the story for us.
Well, Ed Royce from the Foreign Affairs Committee of the U.S. Congress, he's met with the White Helmets on many occasions with other politicians. He's been photographed with them. He's a big supporter of the White Helmets, and now he's calling for their funding to be immediately restored.
We cannot abandon the region. We must work with our partners and use all the tools of diplomacy, including financial pressure and U.S. assistance, to help change conditions on the ground. The administration should start by immediately resuming stabilization funding, including to the White Helmets.
Stabilization funding of their attempt to overthrow Assad. They make it sound like it's to stabilize the country. But to stabilize the country, that would require pulling out the psychopaths that we're financing and arming, us and our allies. That would require Assad having governance over his own country to actually introduce stability. If you topple Assad and you let the terrorists that we're financing run free, that would create an intense amount of instability. But yet they promote themselves as a force of good that is there to help stability. And everyone's all in except for the U.S. Everyone's all in.
Last week, the Trump administration froze their U.S. funding, with thousands of civilian lives at risk. Will the Prime Minister step up, pledge the government to plug the funding shortfall that now exists, and ensure these heroic rescue workers can continue their work?
Now, what's remarkable about this is Matthew Pennycock. Oh, I'm sorry, Cook. Sorry, my bad. And he is of the British Labour Party, the MP of the British Labour Party. And he's the one saying, war, 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 war. We need to fund more war. Please step up and tell us you'll fund more war.
Shortfall that now exists, and ensure these heroic rescue workers can continue their work.
Prime Minister. Can I say to the honourable gentleman, we recognise the very important and valuable work that the White Helmets are doing. They are, as he says, doing this in horrendously difficult conditions. They are incredibly brave to be continuing that work. We do support them. We will continue to support them. And my right honourable friend, the International Development Secretary, will be looking at the level of that support in the future.
Well, the issue was raised today during Prime Minister.
Yeah. So they're all in. The British are all in. They're all in. We got to keep it going. Keep it going. Keep showing them that money. Money, money, money. Got to keep the White Helmets going because they're doing the good work.
Show me the money!
Now, there was also the big release of the Russian Facebook ads. I bet you guys got to look at some of those. I started downloading the whole shebang. They're huge. It's gigs and gigs. One thing that jumped out at me is the decline as the election approached of how many ads were bought. That's not something the media is really talking about very much. But it started heavy about midway in like the whole span of data that we have. Like there was you could tell they were testing early on, and then they went all crazy. And as the election approached, they actually scaled back their ad purchases.
Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, not nearly as many ads supporting Hillary Clinton, but if you look at the Russians' big picture scenario, it appears the goal was to really stir up racial and political divisions because most of the ads were issue-based, like immigration and gun control. And thanks to Facebook's targeting tools, the Russians were able to deliver phony information to specific groups: white, black, Hispanic, LGBTQ, even viewers who watch Fox News or MSNBC. The next goal was to entice American voters into liking or following Russian Facebook pages and ads, and they were almost getting real-time feedback. For example, there was a Born Liberal ad that got 50,000 views and was then shared, and this make-believe ad for a made-up black activist group got 10,000 hits.
Wow.
Other ads only got a few clicks, likes, or views. And the bottom line is the popular ads often made their way into Facebook news feeds and got a whole lot more exposure. The unsuccessful ads were quickly taken down.
Shocker.
As long as they have the targeting tools, how can you stop this?
It's going to be tough, right? I mean, some of the ads were bought well after the election, in fact, well into 2017, causing some lawmakers to believe the Russians might still be at it. And today, Facebook released a statement reading, quote, "This will never be a solved problem because we're up against determined, creative, and well-funded adversaries, but we're making steady progress." And on that note, we should note Facebook has implemented a number of oversight measures. But in hindsight, you know, some of the ads were dead giveaways. They were bought with rubles, and the language was poor. For example, one anti-immigration ad read that immigrants, quote, "should prove that they are deserved to stay in the U.S., and a pro-Black Lives Matter ad read, quote, "Your life matter, my life matter, black matters." Not exactly the best context. Lawmakers put all this information out there so that we can see it and then hopefully do a much better job of guarding ourselves the next time around, if there is a next time around.
God.
Thank you, Trace. Trace Gallagher in L.A.
If we need to guard ourselves against that, we are the stupidest nation on the planet. If we can't guard ourselves against that, we are so stupid. That is frustrating. It's really frustrating to think that people could be fooled by any of that. I just don't buy it. I wonder when Google's turn in the barrel is. Because Google AdWords is this functionality for the entire internet. Now, Facebook does let you get a little more specific in a few ways because of the information that Facebook has about you. But if you've never bought a Google ad before, you might not know that it's kind of the same thing, but for every site on the internet that uses AdWords. So when is Google's time? Because this is a bigger problem than Facebook. A lot of you probably saw the story this week about the company that's tracking your cell phone and selling the location information, and you could even go sign up and try it out for free. That kind of stuff happens all the time. MoviePass, the movie subscription service, it's all about your data. The app that you use on your phone to use the service tracks your location so they can sell to advertisers your night out at the movies. I know this because the guy that runs the company was bragging about it in a financial call, and I covered it on Tech Talk today. MoviePass is about $10 a month, and you can go see about a movie a day. So it's a pretty good deal if you like going to see the movies. But it requires the use of an app. And that app is a data collection whore. And they want to build an entire night out. So they want to know where you went to eat. They want to know where your girlfriend's house was at or boyfriend's house was at. They want to know what theater you went to, what movie you saw, how long you stayed at the theater, if you went out later, maybe if you went back to her at his house. They want to know all of that, and they're going to sell that as a package to the advertisers. It's all out there. They're not even trying to hide it. So why is it just Facebook? Is it about the ads? Is this step one? If they go after Google, then we know it's really about the privacy and the ads. If they stay after Facebook, then it's probably about something else. Now, Google has a huge, huge lobbying effort in D.C. Maybe it's about that. Maybe this is a message to Facebook to start paying more lobbyists. Although I think they already do that. I'm not quite sure. I'm no fan of Facebook. Don't get me the wrong way. I don't use it. I have an account there, but I don't use it. I'm not logged in. I'm no fan of Facebook, but this seems like we're now on about, 2 months of Facebook being in the barrel? That pink-haired kid was just testifying before a Senate panel today. Every single day, I see stories about Facebook. So something's going on specifically with Facebook. And if it doesn't move on If it doesn't move on from Facebook, then I think we'll have at least a partial answer. Let's talk about this beautiful moment, though, in State Department briefings. You know they do these. They have these nearly daily briefings, and the old Fox News reporter is now a State Department spokesperson, and she gets asked an awkward question about Israel, and she's not having it.
And we're going to have to wrap.
For Israel killing, when you say Israel has a right to defend itself.
We're done with
Israel
this.
has a right to defend itself.
We've already been there.
And there are no Israeli casualties.
Okay.
There are literally tens of thousands.
I think we've covered this extensively already.
Palestinian casualties and
Go
100
on.
dead.
One last question. Do you have something else?
Yeah. On the Lebanese.
Requires a response. And furthermore, I mean, the U.S. isn't, mowing down people along the U.S.-Mexican border. Isn't that accurate?
We are done with this issue. We've covered extensively already. I've taken many questions on this.
So Israel's off the hook again.
Sir, thank you for your question. I think we've covered this already, okay? I'm sorry, I'll get back to you another time, okay? Thank you.
I got to get out of here, she says. And everybody bails. Awkward. All right, now, I'm not saying that Oprah smokes pot. But I think Gail is saying that Oprah smokes pot, because if you listen to this clip, Gail implies, I think maybe Oprah smoked once or twice before, but then she tells another story that involves another actress, and that actress seems to clearly know that Oprah likes to smoke. I don't know what to make of this clip. I didn't throw it in the high note because it doesn't really matter, but if we're gonna wrap up the overtime, I'm gonna play this and I'll let you decide. But I'm thinking Oprah smokes.
Don't you think if you are going to smoke marijuana, wouldn't Amy be a good girl to smoke it with? Wouldn't she be a good girl to smoke it with? Yeah.
Now, there's a reason why she's just randomly throwing that out there. At first, you're like, that seems totally rando. No, stick with it. This is actually something she's going to do.
But, if you're best friends with Oprah, I mean, you got to invite her, too.
Well, I'm not saying anything, but I think she has smoked marijuana.
Mommy needs a joint.
I think she has. But this is funny. Oprah just recently did an interview with Amy, and when it was over, she said, Amy said, Oprah, I need to talk to you about something. And Oprah thought it was going to be something really important. And she said, we've got to get Gail to smoke marijuana. No. How are we going to do this? How are we going to do this? But, I intend to do it one of these days. It will not be a public event. I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
Oh, I'm just curious. She smokes all the time. Oprah and Gail be smoking out with Amy Schumer. You know it. I just covered it right here. The news has been broken. Your life has been changed. But I leave it up to you to make your decisions. But I'm thinking Oprah's a pothead, Amy Schumer's a pothead, and Gail's about to become a pothead. And none of that matters. See you next week. Yeah. Okay, so I got a couple of live stream clips I want to play for you guys. Chase is just a couple of minutes away, so we'll do that. But let's see, what can we do? Oh, talk about Dick Cheney wanting to restart the torture program. The U.S. soldier waterboards himself to try to make a point. Yeah, the media admits they have a Trump addiction. Rand Paul explains his budget. Oh, how about a rando? How about none of those? How about something you didn't see coming? Pow!
Now to a new report on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 that reaches a disturbing conclusion about why it disappeared. A 4-year search of the depths of the Indian Ocean has failed to locate the plane, which vanished with 239 people aboard. Now, an investigation by Larry Vance, a retired air crash investigator with Canada's Transportation Safety Board, says the evidence is clear. The pilot deliberately crashed into the Indian Ocean, in what Vance believes was a mass murder-suicide that was carefully planned. What happened aboard MH370 is as puzzling as it was unprecedented. About 40 minutes after takeoff, it disappeared from radar. Its transponders stopped broadcasting. But military radar detected the plane veering inexplicably off course. And later, a maintenance computer started sending signals, 7 in all, to a satellite. That confirmed to investigators the jet continued to fly for 6 more hours southward to the Indian Ocean. They assumed MH370 must have become a ghost flight. The pilot somehow incapacitated, the plane eventually running out of fuel, spiraling from cruising altitude to the ocean. That theory led to 2 massive searches which turned up nothing. Now, a veteran Canadian air crash investigator says the officials made what he calls a glaring mistake, failing to properly study the only physical evidence of the crash. Larry Vance was one of the main investigators of the 1998 Swiss air crash south of Halifax. In a new book, Vance says he's certain one of MH370's pilots remained in control until he landed on the water. Vance has done a detailed analysis of the wreckage that washed ashore, including this key piece, a flap. He says it has signs, so-called witness marks, which show it was deployed by a pilot and then scraped against the water in a landing designed to keep the plane intact before it sank. Vance says if there had been an uncontrolled dive, the flap would have been extensively damaged and there would have been thousands of pieces of floating debris. And Larry Vance joins us from Ottawa. You don't have the data recorders here, Larry. You have very little from the plane itself. How can you be so sure of your conclusions?
Ian, just by good circumstance, we have the exact pieces of wreckage that appeared on the coast of Africa to tell us exactly what happened at the end of the flight. We know from those pieces that the aircraft went into the ocean at a relatively low speed, normal ditching speed, and we know that it was under control.
Yep, that's it. That's what we know.
Chris,
that's it.
I need some hope.
Oh, what kind of hope?
No, just
Mommy
hope.
needs a joint.
Well,
yeah,
I need to talk to Mommy.
Such a good clip. It just works, you know. It just works.
I have.
What's the matter, buddy?
I'm becoming pessimistic, man.
Oh,
I mean,
hate that. That's the worst, huh?
I see what's happening with,
isn't that the worst?
With local and national politics.
Sure.
And now, it makes me wonder. It makes me wonder what's going on in the world, man.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me sad.
It almost sounds like you can make a song out of that, dude. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You know, sometimes sometimes it's almost just unbelievable where we're at with stuff. Like it's just. Now, why is it cutting off? You know, why is it got to cut it off? I don't understand. Chase sad. Oh, don't be sad.
It's just depressing because it's like, you know, you see everything that's going on, everything's so polarized. You know, you feel like there's this deep state and there's fake news and and you know there's no collusion anywhere. You know, I for me,
no collusion.
I mean,
John Bolton is in the White House.
Exactly. Are we back in 98 or you
I know, right?
It's
yeah.
like Chase sad.
Yeah, you know what I've realized, and this seems to hold pretty constant. Individually, humans are pretty great, but when you get them in a group, like they're just the worst.
Hey, they can be totally.
They're just like when I, Chase, when I travel this great nation and I meet the audience individually, they're the coolest people ever.
Absolutely.
You know, but then eventually, like, there's somebody that's gonna flame us on something. It's like, what? That's so disconnected from the people that I meet.
Well, we had that happen with the No Agenda situation, where I mean, instead of, and they, Adam and
they can't claim
John,
the bell. That still gets me. Like, you can't claim the bell.
Yeah, I know. But John and Adam, once they actually did a deep dive and analysis, they say, "Oh, well."
You know what that really means is they realize that it's a really good show. That's what that means. And
wait, hold on.
And they realize we're smoking them with video because they've talked about how their audience wants video of the clips a lot, and they often refer to the imagery of the scene.
Yeah. I mean, granted, though, they audio, as you definitely know, is much easier than video.
Well, and the thing that they have, and the reason why the two shows I don't think are similar at all, is because they have John C. Dvorak and Adam Curry.
Yeah.
Like, that's a unique combo that I think is, I think when somebody looks back at the history of podcasting in like 30 years, there definitely should be like a spot carved out for those two.
Absolutely. And I love it when, two seemingly polarizing, people and come together on a completely different topic.
Yeah.
You got Adam Curry, from MTV World. You got John C. Dvorak from the tech world.
Why are we giving them a free plug again?
Because we like them.
Well,
They're good people.
I
even though the bell thing's a little confusing to them. But
yeah.
no, getting back to my original
Actually,
point.
I will say this. If I was going to give them a criticism, is, man, do they really sound out of touch these days when they get to technical stuff?
Oh.
They think their understanding is deep, but they really miss the mark on a lot of technical stuff these days.
Yeah.
And not only when I listen to them live and I hear them troubleshooting, but also just like when they're trying to cover something that's kind of technical, you can hear that they've really kind of gotten lost in the weeds.
Yeah.
And it's like, guys, you're really starting to sound out of touch. And that's particularly hard for me because it doesn't soften how strong their opinion is on something.
Right.
And so they don't go into it with any acknowledgement that perhaps they're beginning to lose touch with the technology. And so there's no humbleness to it. They go in with a full force on their opinion, and their opinion is based off of a misunderstanding a lot. And I don't have any specific examples, but it's definitely been really anytime there's I can't really, like anytime there's a story where they have to try to figure out how something works technically, they really just miss the mark.
Right. And that's where, you got us, you and I, where, we're technically minded. We come from a background of IT. And then we took that knowledge and applied it towards internet broadcasting.
Mm-hmm.
And then
where they came as broadcasters to internet broadcasting.
Right, and then they try to take their knowledge from that end and try to go, well, what do we do? And it's interesting to kind of hear their evolution through the years, with their quality. And because I remember when I first listened years ago, I was just like, I'm listening to it because the content's good, but sometimes there's audio issues and there's weird.
They've gotten better about,
which is nice.
They've gotten better about stopping the show and waiting for the Skype issues to work out, but they haven't figured out how to break out of the Skype box yet. So just the last 2 episodes I listened to, they probably had to stop the show 3 or 4 times.
Oof.
Yeah.
That's rough.
That is really rough. You know how much I hate it when we have to stop the show.
I hate that too. That's a big pet peeve. But, we're being thorough about this because, like next week, for example, we're going to have the test, and I think it's going to be fine. I mean, the only thing I need to, practice on is being ready to fire off clips.
Yeah, the only thing I'm worried about is like the intro. And maybe we just do a different intro or something, because that's always like the hardest thing about the intro is like, what clip do you use to sort of frame the episode?
I have an easy answer, man. I mean, just just take our music.
Thinking, yeah.
Give me that video clip. I'll fire it off, and
yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing is I don't think while I'm traveling I'm going to have time to the thing that takes me the longest is the intro clip.
Well, no. Well, like what I mean is just give me the generic.
Oh yeah, create a generic. That's what I was thinking. Is like next week I just create a generic intro for the next few weeks.
Yeah, with our awesome music.
Yeah,
and we'll just lead into it. And it's no big deal. I mean, that's what most podcasts do. We just do something unique.
Yeah, exactly. We'll just basically do it like regular podcasts for a couple of weeks, and then when we get back,
we'll come down to standard level, you guys.
Yeah,
but we'll be back to exetive level and then platinum level. Wait, do I sound like a multi-level marketing?
Yeah,
sorry.
All right. Well, are we ready to do this thing? Chat room, please bang suggest.
I'm strapped in.
You ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
You came with a bevy in hand.
I do have my Pure Leaf. This is not a plug, but a Pure Leaf, real brew tea, unsweetened. I love this stuff.
Is that Pixel? I forget which phone you have.
Pixel 1. Pixel 1 XL. Now, the reason why I'm holding on to this is
Pixel 3, obviously.
Well...
Oh, the headphone jack.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And it just got announced.
I remember, yeah.
It just got announced today, the OnePlus 6.
Yeah.
Now, here's what I don't get.
I haven't looked at the specs. How is it?
It is slammed with specs.
Really? I'm gonna read up about it tonight after the show.
And the best thing I love about it, it's got a headphone jack.
Yeah.
And when
OnePlus has really been sticking to that.
And when I see a phone company like OnePlus, which I think isn't it, who's the parent company? It's like Oppo, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're able to put a beautiful phone together, and even Samsung, I'm going to give them a little credit here.
Yeah.
They're able to keep this. And then when I hear Apple and I hear who's the other? Oh, Pixel, Google, and go, oh, we can't put it in there. Bullshit. Yeah. You can.
Yeah,
I'm
really curious to see what they do with the SE.
Oh, the Apple SE.
Yeah, have you seen the leaks where it's got like an all front glass, like Face ID kind of setup again?
And I heard that they're going to put the jack back in. I heard
that's one of the leaked. one of the leaked like case designs has a headphone jack in there.
I mean, I know people, and I've spoken with people, even at work. People have asked me, "So Chase, what kind of phone do you recommend?"
Yeah.
And then my first question is, "Do you use headphones?"
Yeah.
Because for some people, they're invested.
Yeah.
They have stuff. They don't want to go dongle city.
Yeah.
And then we go off on a tangent. But yeah, when
the Apple answer there is AirPods, and the people that have them, I don't have them, but the people that have them really like them.
Well, yeah, sometimes I feel like it's a little biasness because you spend, what is it, $200 for AirPods?
I agree. It's like confirmation bias.
Right, and you're like, well, yeah, they're great because
Yeah.
I spent $200 on them.
Right.
Well,
I gifted Hadia a pair, and she loves them.
Okay.
But I agree
But
that
she loves you, dude, and that's what she's supposed to
or
say.
people that buy a $1,000 phone are going to be more inclined to love the phone.
That's
right.
true.
Yeah, that is a thing, and that just another. If we could do one more tangent, is one of the things I really, really hate about like a lot of the YouTube reviews that get products. Because I have done a lot of product reviews over the years, and one of the things that I know is unquestionably true is I really, really have to recalibrate my bias if I'm given the product to review versus buy it. I am way more inclined to give it a negative review if I bought it. Because there's a psychological cost that you can't, and because I know that about myself, I try to account for that bias when I'm sent a product.
Yeah.
But it's like the number one thing I have to fight when I'm given a product to review.
Well, when you're putting your money up for it, it's one of those things where you know what, it's not given to you for free. You're putting your hard-earned money into it.
Man, that is something that I think people don't fully appreciate that haven't done product reviews before. When I've had to spend $1,000 on something versus gotten a $10,000 something, you can't help but just not really care if it's not quite perfect because my God, you just got given a $10,000 thing,
Yeah.
right? Or a $1,000 thing, or whatever it is. So, anyways, that's been rattling around recently.
I always feel like, Chris, maybe we should do a podcast where we don't talk politics.
I know.
And we're able to just because this is like good content. I'm just saying.
You're right.
Chat room, I don't know what you guys think. I think this is good content. I'm just saying.
Well, maybe I should. The problem is that we don't have a lot of windows that sync up when we either want, because I'm not really available on the weekends.
Right. Well, we just pick another day during the week.
Yeah. Another evening is what it'd have to be.
Well, I mean, user error Veritunda is good, but the thing with user error is like, there's sometimes like a rotating cast of hosts.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, where Chris and I can just kind of just rap.
That, if it was Tech Talk Weekly or something like
something
that.
Like that.
That might be something. I don't know. Well,
it's something to brainstorm, plant the seed. So. You're going to go on your trip. We're going to do this thing, and then we see how it grows. And
yeah. Maybe the
users never have errors.
Yeah. Maybe there is something because I am trying to figure out what to do next with Tech Talk because I don't think we're going to do another season. So I think I think it's going to be done in a couple of episodes. So I do want to figure out what to replace it with. And the problem with user error is that the scheduling of it is a fucking pain. It's a full-time job.
Oh yeah.
And it's just the worst. People have you'd think you could have like a couple of hosts lined up, then have a couple of backups, and then whoever's available is available, and you sit down and record. That is not how it works.
You know what? That was one of my biggest issues with Geek Gamer Weekly Live, whatever you call it. I did nearly 300 episodes, but it got very exhausting. Are you going to be there this week? Oh, you can't? Okay, I got to get somebody else.
Like at a certain point, it's like we're all adults. You know what you committed to. Why do I have to like parent you into this?
Well, wrangle, and it's if you can't do it, you can't do it. But that's
so user error has just been on the shelf for weeks because as busy as I am, I just don't have time to do that.
I understand. Yeah, we all do.
But I do want to create something more regular.
Yeah. Me too.
Well,
I want to do something more regular that doesn't involve politics.
All right. Well, we should talk more about it.
We should.
All right. Okay. So it's the Unfilter Show. Everybody bang suggest.
Oh, it's fixed again. Bot's back.
Bot is back, at least for now. Until literally until it eats up all of the RAM on the system.
By the way, how's things been going since the rebuild?
Super solid.
That's props to Noah. Thank you, Noah.
Unbelievably solid. I'm not even sure if I've even had to reboot the system or close OBS since Noah's been here.
Dude, you need to reboot every once in a while.
I know. One of these has been, but not much. Like it's been really, 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 really solid.
That's awesome.
I love it.
That's great.
All right. Okay.
Here we go.
It is the Unfiltered program. This is episode 280, and it begins right now in 3, in a 2. I got a really noisy chair these days. All right, bang suggest chat room. For God's sakes, one job.
Sweet Tea's great, by the way, Big Kitty.
What is it?
Sweet Tea. We're talking tea now in the chat room.
Oh, yeah?
I love Sweet Tea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a fan of it. All right, here we go. In a 3, in a 2, in a 3, 2. This is Unfilter, episode 280 for May 16th, 2018.
We're back, and as we said, the president fulfilled a major campaign promise today with the opening of the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem. But as the elaborate dedication ceremony took place with high-profile guests like Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner on hand, less than 60 miles away at the Gaza border, huge protests turned decidedly and suddenly deadly. 56 Palestinians were killed.
Coming to you right now from the Pacific Northwest, it's time again for Unfiltered, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly show about the news you really shouldn't be watching. My name is Jace. On the board is Mr. Chris.
Mr. Chairman, it's good to be with you again.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here. This show has now come to order. And on today's docket, we're going to talk cyber.
How'd you know?
We're also going to talk probably about our president.
It could happen.
And
maybe a little Russia.
Maybe a little Jerusalem in there.
Yeah, it could be a little Hamas, some rockets.
Maybe a little net neutrality.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
And perhaps maybe a few other surprises in there as well as a high note and a super dense overtime.
And, of course, we're going to check out my sack.
Ooh, I'm looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
I saw you were up early this morning on the old Patreon, letting the Club 33 get in on that. You were on top of that, dude.
My goal every week, because, to me, not only our Patreon family is very important to us over at patreon.com/unfiltered, a shameless plug.
Yo.
But also Club 33, because you guys, man, you bring it every week. Veratunda, by the way, special shout out to him. He's probably by far
he's on top of it.
Every single week. He's given his basically the news coming from the UK.
Yeah.
And so big props to Veratunda and everybody who supports us. Thank you.
At Linux Fest, I had a chance to meet 2 of our Club 33 members and just a couple of really cool guys.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so we are going to talk about all those things that you just mentioned. This is going to be our last normal episode for a little while, too.
What? We're not normal?
Yeah, well, we're going to be Abby normal for a bit. So we're going to maybe, if all things go as planned, this is all tentative at this moment, but we're going to try a remote broadcast setup for next week's episode of The Unfiltered where Chase will be running the board, which is something I've done for 278 episodes.
So I've ran the board from JB1 one time during the show. Chris was actually not even here. I think it was myself, and I was just by myself. I was solo.
Right.
Then I did do a show with Noah once.
And then, okay, so it's 3 times, because then there was one time I was in Arizona and we did a show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this time around, we're doing it differently. I'll be broadcast remote central. And I'll be bringing Chris in remotely.
Yeah, and
now
the
even though
Gamer Studio.
Yeah, even though you'll be here, we want to try it.
Yeah, I may actually, if it goes really, really smooth, I may actually go to the RV and to do a full test, because the thing is, I'm going down to Texas.
Yeah,
and I'm leaving like May 27th.
Right. Damn.
So we've got to figure this out soon.
Damn.
Yeah, and then I'll be down there at Texas Linux Fest in Austin, Texas. So
I'm glad we do the show on Wednesdays, because my weekends are filling up.
Oh, man, Chase.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there was a big kind of cyber story this
week.
What?
I'm surprised.
I know, right? And there's not a lot of direct coverage about it, so we're going to do a little original reporting here in the Unfiltered show. Did you hear about the elimination of the cyber coordinator position today?
I did. I heard that John Bolton, really wants to cut the fat.
Yep. And streamline things is the word they're using. Yeah, here it is. This is
today, National Security Advisor John Bolton.
This is the Democrat from Rhode Island, Representative James Levine. I think that's how you say his name.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And he is basically all upset that this position has been eliminated. Now, in full disclosure, I did a little research on him. That's because he's involved in like one of the committees that gets money for cyber defense and stuff. So
so he's like feeling a budget pinch right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I'm not saying one way or the other. But that might be what his interest is here in this particular situation.
Speaker, today, National Security Advisor John Bolton eliminated the position of Special Assistant to the President and Cybersecurity Advisor. I could not more strongly disagree with that decision. As co-chair of the Congressional Cybersecurity Caucus, I follow the work of the executive branch very closely on this issue over many years. I've had my critiques of President Bush, of President Trump, and yes, even of President Obama.
Even Barry?
Wow.
But always from President Clinton through the current administration, I've always felt that we are moving in the right direction in better protecting the country in cyberspace, even if too slowly and with a few bumps along the way. Well, today we took a giant step backwards. Cybersecurity, Mr. Speaker, is the economic and national security challenge of the 21st century, and as such, we need to be increasing our focus on it, not weakening it. I've respected and admired the work of the three cybersecurity coordinators, the late Howard Schmidt, Michael Daniel, and President Trump's pick, Rob Joyce. And I'm sorry that their legacy is being tarnished today.
Damn.
Ouch.
And, you know, I've already heard this spun as this is to weaken our response to Russia. That this was all part of Putin's plan to weaken our response to Russia.
I do find it suspect, though, when actually even the president himself has talked about cyber and talked about these kind of things. Now we're cutting this. It's a little perplexing.
The one thing that we could use when it comes to how we respond to cyber is cutting of the middlemen, because all of this thickness, think about this, all of these layers of abstraction from the actual IT work are an introduction of another layer of translation from IT to user. Do you follow what I'm saying?
I do.
Like, we're the administrative end of this problem is so greatly removed from the actual technical work being done that a phishing attack has the same level of importance as, say, a Stuxnet to these people, because they are so clueless as to how these things functionally work that they label a phishing attack a sophisticated nation-state attack. At the same time, Stuxnet is clearly a sophisticated state attack.
Yes.
And so I think maybe cutting some of the middlemen out could be good. Who knows, though?
At least at least we have a good a person keeping their eye on the ball, right? I mean,
yeah, well, definitely with John's mustache, he's always gonna be sniffing things coming his way.
Hey-o.
Now, we always got to make sure we're protecting the vote from the Russians, except for this news agency gets a little bit off the mark here.
Now to the Russian hacking of our presidential election and efforts to protect your vote. You know, the Department of Homeland Security, we're told, is playing catch-up, as fewer than half the states have gotten the on-site risk assessments they asked for.
Now, the funny historical irony here is you might recall that the Department of Homeland Security played like this ridiculous political game to try to get the states to take them up on their auditing stuff. So that way the State Department, the Department of Defense, I should say, the DHS, God, it's so confusing. So that way they could get a big piece of this cyber market. The Department of Homeland Security wants to be responsible for protecting the Homeland cybersecurity. That they feel like that's their territory.
Yes.
They don't feel like that is the job of the military or of the FBI, but of the Department of Homeland Security. And so during the election, leading up to the election, and a little bit after the election, they tried really, really, really hard to get different states to take them up on their offer to audit them. Do you recall this?
I do.
So some of those states did take them up after all. And now they've dropped the ball, and they haven't gotten the audit done that they convinced them all to take.
This definitely sounds like a government bureaucracy.
Isn't it the worst ever? It's so classic.
As fewer than half the states have gotten the on-site risk assessments they asked for on the vulnerability of an attack on their election systems. Some states, though, now taking steps themselves, like Illinois, where Russian hackers hit tens of thousands of voters in 2016.
Now, let's carefully parse how this story is delivered to us after they get done screwing up. That's not our silence, that's theirs.
Yep. You're not running the...
Well, we're having a problem, audio problem with our report, as you can clearly see. We went
You mean
to
clearly
Galesburg,
here, but okay, fair enough.
Illinois. That is where, unfortunately...
He really goes off the rails when he doesn't have his teleprompter to tell him what to say. He wouldn't make such a good podcaster.
That is where, unfortunately, the voter registration rolls of about 14,000 people were, officials said, hacked by 2 IP addresses that were traced to the Netherlands that were then traced back to Russia.
Now, if I recall correctly, so let's unpack this. So what they're talking about isn't the vote. It is registration information that the state held in a MariaDB that was using the default username and password and was turned on to accept internet connections. So by default, when you install MariaDB, you set up a root username and the root user and password. And by default, it only accepts connections from 127.0.0.1, the local host. And then these agencies, these government agencies, changed it to accept remote connections so that way the contractors could connect and set up the database for them. And they never bothered to change it from just whatever the default password was or whatever. The stories are in previous show note links. And that's the hacking that happened here. That's the voter hacking, is that these databases were connected to and downloaded. That's the big hack here. So keep that in mind as I go through this story.
Addresses that were traced to the Netherlands that were then traced back to Russia.
That's quite the trace route they did there.
Yeah.
This was all part of what intelligence officials say was a Russian effort to hack the election back in 2016, that they successfully were able to get into the voter registration site of Illinois. The Illinois officials, though, say they are defending the system for the election in the midterms. Here's a report on what they told us.
Now they got it working.
Galesburg, Illinois, a typical small town nestled in the flat farmlands of the Midwest. The Amtrak train to Chicago stops here 3 times a day.
You mean the train that the Trump administration wanted to cut from Mid-America? Sorry. I mean, that's true, though. They wanted to cut all these, like, mid-station stops.
Don't take away the trains. I love trains.
I know. I didn't want to take it away. But
why are you talking bad about trains, dude?
I'm just saying, like, he brings up trains like, it stops here 3 times a day. Well, the government wanted to take that away.
I like trains, though.
I love trains. Trains good or planes bad?
I think that's what it is.
The Amtrak train to Chicago stops here 3 times a day. But this unassuming slice of the American heartland, the site of an Abraham Lincoln-Stephen Douglas debate in 1858, was, in the last presidential election, invaded by the Russians. The FBI and the Department of Homeland Security say the state's voter registration rolls were hacked by Russian intelligence.
So they do try to make it clear, I guess, the voter registration rolls. And I think they're using that term to kind of keep it a little generic.
In a sense, it's a declaration of war. It's a cyber war.
Stephen Sandvoss, the supervisor of the Illinois State Board of Elections, says the attack lasted for weeks.
When a foreign government attacks your system, obviously they're up to no good. And elections being a central part of our democracy, being attacked by a foreign government, I think everybody in the country should be concerned about that.
As the national debate over election security focuses on ways to protect the integrity of our election system, Sandvoss and state officials know firsthand what it's like to be targeted by Moscow.
I have some suggestions. Don't put your database on the internet with a default username and password.
Yeah.
So remember, all these are big words we're using. A nation attack. All of this really intense language for what was an IT misconfiguration. And it doesn't matter if it's Russians or North Koreans or Chinese or Iranians or weaponized Canadians. If you make a configuration mistake like that, there are people that are constantly scanning. In fact, there's a search engine database that we've talked about on TechSnap that scans and catalogs all of these instances on the internet. And then anyone can just go query for a database with a default username and password and get the results back. And people have even built exploit tools on top of this that automatically download that database, parse all of the MariaDB servers that are listening on the internet, and automatically launch attacks against them while you click a few buttons and sit back. Those are tools that are free and available on GitHub right now. You do not have to be a weaponized specialist working for the government. And the way they frame this prevents actual rational discussion from what are simple, easy to understand facts. When we get away from the facts and we get into the fear mongering, we're never going to fix this problem. And that's why it really gets me, especially as somebody who's worked in IT for a long time.
Right.
And I never would have set up a client with some of these basic things. Like, that would have been the kind of thing that if I would have come in during a security audit and seen that would have been embarrassing for the IT people that set it up like that.
But Chris, you're missing the point, man. You're not a government entity. If you're a government entity, then you do that.
Sandvoss and state officials know firsthand what it's like to be targeted by Moscow. He says hackers struck the state's voter rolls starting in June of 2016 in the heat of the presidential election, at one point hitting the system 5 times per second. In some cases, voter names, addresses, the last 4 digits of Social Security numbers, and other personal voting information were accessed. The board says up to 76,000 voter registrations were breached, with the greatest concentration, 14,121, in the city of Galesburg. That, almost half the city's population. Galesburg Mayor John Pritchard takes it in stride.
You see, none of them are going to say, well, it wasn't the Russians. It was the fact that our IT guy screwed up. He didn't follow up on checking what the contractors did, and the contractors just set it up because they're lazy. They set it up wrong, and we never audited it. He's not going to come out and say that. He's going to say, oh, man, yeah, we're getting attacked by Putin while he's sitting in Moscow, but we're taking it in stride.
The Russians would be making a serious mistake if they came here with hostile intentions.
And the funny thing is, it's so hilarious. I laugh about it all the time. Nothing gets fixed because of this.
Yeah.
Nobody gets in trouble. There's no accountability.
No one takes responsibility.
Nothing gets fixed.
No.
It's the Russians. Give the DHS some more money so that way they have more time to do those audits that they convince the states to take.
Chris, all they need is just more money, and then they can fix this problem.
All
just
we
a little
need
bit
is
more.
All we need is money. All right, there was a story last week that I didn't include in the show because it seemed... Well, it seemed like the Donald masturbatory bullshit. But now it actually looks like it could be true. There may have been a mole in the Trump campaign for the FBI.
We reported last week on the possibility that someone inside President Trump's campaign was a secret FBI source. Tonight, the House Intelligence Committee wants to know more.
You mean
the
Devin
reason
Nunes
why
does?
a lot of us were suspicious is
this is Representative Ron, but I bet he's familiar with your buddy Devin.
Yeah,
because Glenn Simpson, at one point, the head of Fusion GPS, testified that there was a human source inside the Trump campaign.
All right, so that's data point number 1. Glenn Simpson, who is the head guy of Fusion GPS, testified that they had a source from within the Trump campaign. So that's factoid like number 1. And the reason why I'm drawing attention to that is because that was testimony that was then later disputed testimony that was then later undisputed. It's really weird, and it's easy to lose track of it.
Based on his conversations with Christopher Steele.
Okay, former Chief Assistant U.S. Attorney and contributing editor at the National Review, Andrew McCarthy, joins us live with reaction. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here.
Okay, you've written this lengthy piece. I'm going to tweet it out because I think it's really important for people who aren't as familiar with this case to go through. You outline the facts, the names, the dates of everybody involved here. It's very informative. Now, Glenn Simpson, co-founder of Fusion GPS, is a key player in this whole thing. He told lawmakers one thing, kind of tried to backpedal, and now it sounds like he's back to saying, no, what I originally told you about the sourcing and the start of this whole investigation was right.
Yeah, it's interesting, Shannon. The testimony he gave was that Steele, who was the former British spy who was the author of the dossier, told him that the FBI told him that they had a source inside the campaign. When that became a big controversy after he said it, he tried to walk it back. And the way he walked it back was to try to throw it off on this guy Papadopoulos, who had this conversation with the Australian diplomat, that whole story. It doesn't line up time-wise, because when he gave the testimony in August, that story was not published until about 5 months later. So it's highly unlikely he could have known about it. But what I learned this evening is that on the Senate Judiciary Committee's website, Simpson was asked by the committee, if you changed your mind about something you said, how come you didn't let us in on that? And the lawyer for Simpson gave a short letter to Chairman Grassley saying he stands by his testimony.
Okay. So Papadop, which I always suspected, I think I said it in the show, may have just been a smokescreen all along. That where Papadopoulos got a little too drunk and, oh, yeah, we've got this great info coming in from the Russians, and that was the thing that tipped off the FBI that they didn't need the dossier. That was what you call the media being a lapdog for the deep state. Fake news, everybody. It's real. It happened. Fake news.
Right.
I don't know if that's just, I love it. I love that fake news is even something we say, actually. I hate the terms like vlog and blog, but I think I'm getting into fake news. I'm all about it. But really, what that whole Papadopoulos story didn't really ever seem that legit. That some random ass low level guy was bragging after he had too many drinks to some some ambassador in Australia. Wasn't that the story? And then that's how the FBI got tipped off. That always seemed like a distraction. So have you noticed, Chase? Maybe it's just me, but it seems like there's a lot of leaks in the Trump White House.
There's a few going on over there.
Yeah, and so one of these journalists got the wild idea. Get ready for this. Brace yourself.
I'm waiting.
Are you sitting?
I'm ready. Yeah, I'm sitting.
They had the wild idea to call up the leakers and ask them why they leak.
Huh.
Yeah.
Go figure that one out.
And so here's what they had to say.
Axios AM co-founder and CEO of Axios, Jim Vanna. Hi, Jim. Good morning to you. Happy Monday.
Good morning.
Talk to me about Axios' one big thing today.
You had Jonathan Swan had this terrific item over the weekend about why this White House leaks. I mean, one of the reasons this hit is always so much fun and cable has so much to work with Trump is there's more leaking in 1 week of the Trump White House than you might see in a year of a presidency. And so Swan had the clever idea to call up some of the most prolific leakers and ask them why they do it. What was telling was so many of them said it was about score settling, about making sure that either they're killing ideas or tamping down people who might be on the rise. Because
I think this is a thing that is particularly unique to Trump. I think other presidents have obviously had to deal with this, but because Trump is so responsive to what's in the media, it's a particular way to get to him is via the media. And so if you can kind of make a big stink about something and make a public scene, then it's likely you're going to either stop momentum of something or you're going to get it at least on Donald Trump's radar, which is probably a difficult thing to do. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this culture would go back to his actual candidacy. And I wouldn't be surprised if people in his team were leaking stuff to the FBI and whoever else as they now leak to everybody else now that he's in the White House. We are probably seeing a culture of people that leak around him.
Yep.
That either they're killing ideas or tamping down people who might be on the rise because they don't like the ideas, they don't like those people. I think part of that tone is obviously set at the top of the Trump White House. The other thing is they do worry sometimes about ideas that are making it up to the boss that might get out. And so there's a lot of leaking that's done to try to terminate those ideas before they become a reality. And I think that leaking is sort of one of the defining qualities of this presidency because you have this lens into a White House that's very unusual. If you look back at previous presidencies, rarely do this many people tell you in real time what's actually happening, especially the ugly stuff. Usually they're spinning what a great leader there is and how everyone gets along. This White House, a lot of transparency for good and bad.
Well, there's also a lot of people inside the White House right now that are looking internally to see who these leakers are, trying to sort of tamp that down. What exactly are these leakers doing to sort of cover their tracks to make sure they're not identified as the leakers in the White House?
I mean, you just make sure that you have a good relationship with the reporter that you're dealing with and that you're not leaking something that only you would be the person knowing it and that it'd be obvious that you're the one who knew it. A funny thing over the weekend, there was this meeting on Friday. Sarah Sanders, press secretary, has a meeting, starts the meeting saying, I know somebody's going to leak this, then goes on to condemn people for leaking that comment that the press aide made about John McCain. And within hours, it's leaked. It was on Axios, a full description of what happened in that meeting that she asked not to have leaked, knew would be leaked. It's leaked by a group of people that included several leakers. And I think it's just a sort of a microcosm of what happens at a lot of these meetings. And by the way, it's not just a communications team.
In a way, it's kind of great for us, though. You know
what
I mean?
It gives us great content for sure.
And it keeps everybody honest. One of the things that I believed in the Fire and Fury book that I took away from it, I didn't believe much. In fact, I've gone back over a few pages and been like, that doesn't hold up. But there was one thing that struck me as legit, is Donald Trump's social network is not Twitter, it's actually the phone. He spends a lot of time in the evenings on the phone, talking to people that he trusts. And it's something he's done for a really long time. And the way it was described in the book, it rang really true for me. So when I saw this story from New York Magazine this week, I actually kind of buy it.
So did you catch this headline this morning? Here it is. Donald Trump and Sean Hannity like to talk before bedtime. Makes you want to read the article, right? Well, it's a new piece by Olivia Nunzi in the New York Magazine, and it outlines the Fox News host's pretty incredible relationship with the president, friendship we know, how much of an advisor is he to the president, daily calls that are sometimes a major headache, she reports, in the West Wing. Brian Stelter, our senior media correspondent and host of Reliable Sources, is here for more. The headline makes you want to read it, and then
What do you think about this? Sean Hannity and Donald Trump.
That's a huge conflict of interest.
You think so? For Hannity?
Total. Well,
for who?
For Fox.
Oh. It seems like where Fox is sitting, it makes Hannity super valuable because now they have an in with the president.
Totally. No. I get that part, and I get the angle, and they may not have a problem with it per se, but it obviously shows no impartiality, right? I mean, at that point, and that's where it's. I don't know. It's awkward, I think.
I agree. It's definitely awkward. It is extremely awkward.
Hey, Sean, how you doing?
You know what else is awkward? Is you notice how I paused it and neither one of these two people are looking at each other? Like their body language would suggest they don't actually like each other. So I'll play this just so we can talk about it.
When you read it.
I don't really like seltzer water, but I want to discuss what he has to say.
There are some really stunning parts. One thing that struck me near the beginning of the piece is when Olivia writes about Sean Hannity filling a void left by Steve Bannon.
Yeah, it's a really interesting way to think about Hannity's role as an informal White House advisor, someone who's channeling Trump's base or a specific part of Trump's base that the president may need to be reminded about. Bannon always viewed himself as the voice of Trump's base. In some ways, Hannity sees himself the same way. I think this piece is really a view into the way Trump world works with these frequent phone calls between Trump and Hannity. Usually it's Hannity calling Trump after the show, sometimes the other way around. It really supports the idea that Hannity is an advisor to Trump and Trump is a producer of Hannity's show.
That is weird, huh?
Two-way street.
Talk about
that to me is the weird, awkward thing.
Well, remember, Trump also is coming from an entertainment background. And the more he hears stuff about him, the more he likes it. I mean, it's been proven that way. So, it's definitely awkward, especially in light of the current events that are happening. It's very awkward. But then again, Mr. Sean Hannity hasn't been, shying away from being awkward, especially when it comes to Cohen and some of these other things.
Now, Rudy's been a bit awkward. So he had this whole thing about the Stormy Daniels payments. And then there was also some recent hoopla about AT&T hiring Cohen.
We're going to turn now to politics and Rudy Giuliani, the president's attorney, making headlines again overnight.
Yeah, he's walking back some more comments he made about whether his client, President Trump, was involved in a politically charged merger involving AT&T. He also made news on the timing of a possible face-to-face between the president and special counsel Robert Mueller. ABC's White House correspondent Tara Palmieri is at the White House this morning with more. Good morning, Tara.
Hey, Tara.
Good morning, Adrian and Dan. I spoke to Giuliani about some of those more controversial comments he's made over the past few days and got an update on the Russia investigation.
Oh, good.
This morning, Rudy Giuliani walking back claims that President Trump tried to block the Time Warner AT&T deal. In an interview with the Huffington Post published Friday, Giuliani said, quote, "The president denied the merger. They didn't get the result they wanted."
All right, so did you catch that?
Yeah.
But overnight, Giuliani telling ABC News over the phone the exact opposite.
That's so funny.
So I've been thinking about this. Because this is the, second or third time this has occurred with Giuliani.
Within like 2 weeks.
At this point, I'm filing this under super intentional, super misdirectional, to cause confusion, to F with the media. This is totally a page out of the playbook.
I'm going to say, last week, I called it that this is Giuliani's attempt to take control of the narrative.
Yep.
And they'd rather be running it than having the media run it. Now, the thing he said about the president paying back Cohen's payments to Stormy Daniels,
yes,
now that's official. It's real.
Now it's on paper, clear as day. President Trump's financial disclosure report was just released, and it shows his debt to personal attorney Michael Cohen.
Did you hear that Windows machine in the background?
Yeah, someone... That sounded like a Windows XP machine.
I'm going to go back there.
The report was just released, and it shows his debt to personal attorney Michael Cohen. The financial disclosure was not in last year's report, and it acknowledged that Trump has repaid Cohen for expenses that the lawyer incurred during the 2016 presidential election. Now, what it didn't state explicitly is what the payments were for, like hush money paid to porn star Stormy Daniels. It did say how much, though, a value of between $101,000 and $250,000.
I do whine because I want to win.
So this basically proves everything, and that Donald Trump was lying on Air Force One.
Yes, right. Unless he could maintain he didn't know what the money was used for. Cohen came to me and said, "You need repayment," and I did it.
Well, I thought he said he had no idea of anything, and to talk to Cohen.
Yeah, he did. I don't know.
I mean, I'm not trying to do a catch, like aha, got you moment. I'm just saying a lot of people seem to overlook these things and go, oh, it's no big deal. It's okay. I'm a big fan of the president. It's not a big deal. But this is a big deal. I mean,
Is it?
Well, it's just another.
What's the deal?
The deal is, how can we believe anything?
Okay, so the deal is he lies. That's the deal.
lot.
I don't know. Yeah.
And
I need to hear more information.
I know, and I've honestly, tried a lot of times on this show to say, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt here. I'm going to, I understand how things can spin.
His words were, I have no information.
Right.
I have no idea.
And you know what? And I understand that lying has gone back multiple presidencies. I know it's not unique to our current president. I get that completely. But that being said, when he comes out and says these things, it's like, yeah, it's fake news, it's fake news, it's fake news, and it's not. And it undermines the actual good reporting of the media, and the actual good people that are out there working every day.
Well, I think too.
It's
I mean, that's one take.
Yeah.
I think the other take is it shows you how desperate their situation may have been behind the scenes.
Right.
That when Giuliani came in, he must have advised them. He must have said, "You have to just change this because this is how they're going to eat you alive if you keep lying about this."
Yeah, but it doesn't stop.
I think that's an interesting tell, though.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
Now, I want to talk about the big story this week. And
you mean the huge story?
It's really huge. President Donald Trump announced it several weeks ago, and that was that the United States Embassy would be opening up in Jerusalem. Because it just creates, they just crop up out of nowhere.
They got a U-Haul. And they actually, no, I'm sorry, white Toyota pickup trucks, and they brought up.
This clearly hasn't been in the works.
No,
for
it
years.
has not.
No, clearly. And it's gone pretty smooth. Nobody's really had any issues. There's been no protest. And
wait,
what's that?
Chris, there has been actually.
Outrage boiled over in the Gaza Strip today. While just 60 miles north, that seemed like a world away, ovations for President Trump in Jerusalem. Daughter Ivanka helping do the honors, unveiling the new embassy seal.
We welcome you officially and for the first time to the Embassy of the United States here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Thank you.
I have a weird side question. Why did she have to add the part, the capital of Israel?
Well, because that's been in dispute, you see. That's been part of the dispute, yeah. So she's making it clear that now the United States recognizes this as the capital.
Okay.
The capital of Jerusalem being Israel's capital has been sort of something that the United States wouldn't commit to as a bit of a negotiating bargain with the Palestinians and Hamas. So we were pretending like we were willing to not recognize that in order to get everybody to play ball, and now we've just basically dropped that pretense.
I mean, obviously, it does feel like the spiking of the football in the face of people, and also like saying, sorry, it feels very abrasive-ish.
Israel, thank you. Here in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel. Thank you.
Also there, her husband and Middle East advisor, Jared Kushner.
Jared Kushner has really been Israel's largest advocate inside the Trump White House until Bolton came along.
We've shown that the United States of America will do what's right, and so we have.
President Trump appeared in a recorded message saying the embassy move from Tel Aviv keeps a campaign promise.
The United States under President Harry Truman became the first nation to recognize the State of Israel. Today we officially opened the United States Embassy in Jerusalem. Congratulations.
Jerusalem is a divided city. Palestinian Arabs in the east, Jewish Israelis in the west. Today, the U.S. recognized Israel's claim to all of the city.
See, that's a key fact right there.
Forever.
President Trump is now entering into Israel's history books. Previous U.S. administrations had promised to do this move, moving the embassy here to Jerusalem, but had deferred the decision, fearing it could cause an outbreak of violence in the volatile Middle East. And today, that's exactly what happened.
Tear gas and bloodshed in the Gaza Strip, where some 2 million Palestinians...
Was that dropped by drone?
Yeah. So let's get into this. So the protests are pretty bad because... the protesters,
First time I've seen
Palestinians, they have rocks, and the Israelis have snipers and drones. So it's a totally different set of what would you call that? if you like a tactical analysis, like Israel has the huge advantage.
Horseshoes and hand grenades?
Yeah, pretty much.
Richard, you've been on the ground now for what, 24, 48 hours. Can you walk us through what you're seeing at this moment? What's changed, what you're expecting?
Well, I can tell you what's happening right behind me right now. If you'll notice, there's some white clouds dropping. That is tear gas, and it was just dropped by an Israeli drone. I know it's very bright against the sky, so you probably can't see the drone. We can with our naked eye. It is, and that's why you're also seeing a lot of people running. The ambulances are here. The Israelis are trying to disperse these crowds because they don't want to repeat what happened yesterday. This area is
60 were killed the day before this report.
Right on the Israeli border. Behind me there, where the people are moving away from, is the actual Israeli border fence. And what has been happening is as people go toward that fence, they have been shot. And more than 50 people were shot yesterday, according to the
It's been raised to 60.
Palestinian Health Ministry, and about 2,700 people injured. So
2,700.
This is still an active protest area.
Now it's about the proportional response, really. So the fence that they refer to is really a wide area. It's not one fence.
It's a barrier.
Yeah, several layers of
yeah,
barrier,
yeah.
and there's a bit of wire fence. And what the Palestinians are trying to do is they're just trying to go claim their bit of fence without dying. But the Israelis on the other side have snipers.
NBC's Matt Bradley was there.
Tens of thousands of Palestinian protesters have been trying since this morning to breach that border into Israel. The reaction from Israel with sniper fire and artillery has led to more deaths here.
Cameras captured protesters falling after being shot. Many in Gaza feel they have nothing to lose. Better to die for a principle, their claim to Jerusalem.
Now, I'm not going to say that Israel doesn't have a right to defend themselves. They're a legally recognized nation, and every sovereign nation has the right to defend their territory. But it's really about the level of response, which was brought up recently at a White House press briefing.
Very quickly, the French Foreign Minister Raj said about what's taking place in Gaza, he urged Israeli authorities to exercise discretion and restraint. So to be clear, does the U.S. not agree with the French that Israeli authorities should exercise discretion and restraint?
We believe that Hamas is responsible for what's going on.
So now, Hamas is a terrorist organization that is mortal enemies with Israel. And so the U.S. position here is that it's really all these terrorists. But when you look at the numbers, it's clearly civilians. It's people that are taken out of school. They're trying to make sugar bombs because the only thing they have is rocks and sugar. It's clearly a civilian effort. And the rationale of the United States here reminds me a little bit of a parent who beats his child, who blames the child for getting beaten.
Exercise discretion and restraint.
We believe that Hamas is responsible for what's going on.
So there's no responsibility beyond that on the Israeli authorities. Kill at will.
What I'm saying is that we believe that Hamas, as an organization, is engaged in cynical action that's leading to these deaths.
Let me ask you if I can, then following up on Kelly Sadler today.
See, I really don't have an issue with the Israeli defense argument other than it needs to be proportional. When the Israeli army has drones and snipers and the backing of the most powerful nation in the world, the United States, and the protesters have rocks and their biggest aspiration is to grab a piece of the wire fence, it feels disproportional to be droning them and snipering them. The defense argument seems ludicrous. It'd be like if I beat one of my children into a pulp for breaking a rule. Like I can't claim it's for their own good. It's indefensible.
It's too extreme. The response is not proportional.
Israel has revoked the work permit for Human Rights Watch's director in the country.
Well, now that's a bit of an issue.
Authorities explained the decision was based on a dossier that was compiled on Omar Shakir's activities over the course of the last decade. Shakir's work involves reporting on Israel and the Palestinian territories. He has held his post since April last year. Well, Israel has given him 14 days to leave the country. We spoke to the ousted director, who told us that the real motive behind the decision is to disturb his organisation's work.
That would seem.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, that would.
Rising tensions in the Middle East, Israel and Iran attacking each other overnight.
This has been another thing that seems to have happened since really the U.S. pulled out of the Iran nuke deal. It seems like that there has been a stepping up on the part of Israeli military on striking Syria and Iran targets.
Israel claiming Iran began with Iran launching missiles toward its troops.
Actually, rockets.
And what would be the first direct attack from Iran on Israel. Our chief foreign correspondent, Terry Moran, is tracking all of this for us. Good morning, Terry.
That really is a bit of sloppy writing in her prompter there, because there is a massive difference between a military missile and homemade rockets.
That's right, Robin. Good morning. This is a dramatic escalation in a dangerous confrontation between those two mortal enemies, Iran and Israel, and it all unfolded overnight. First, Iranian forces, as you say, inside Syria, fired 20 rockets into the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights. They targeted Israeli military positions. Well, for months, Iran and Israel, they've been fighting something of a shadow war inside Syria, but Israel says this is the first time Iran, which has sent thousands of troops to Syria to prop up the regime of Bashar al-Assad, has directly attacked across that border. Officials say there were no casualties. And in response, Israel then launched its biggest attack in Syria since 1974. 28 F-15s and F-16s fired more than 60 missiles, striking dozens of Iranian military targets in Syria. Israel says weapons depots and intelligence sites were among those targets.
Should be good. Should be good.
This is the kind of stuff that I think about when I'm like, to what end?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to what end?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? You want to blow, obviously, I guess, your enemy off the face of the earth, right? I mean, is that your logical conclusion in all this?
And while I don't really have a strong position on recognizing Jerusalem as the capital and moving the embassy there,
right, yeah.
It seems like we are just getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into what is a religious blood feud.
Yeah.
It's a really disappointing thing to watch.
And that's where I always thought, you know, we can like learn to respect each other and talk to each other, and instead, we shouldn't be killing each other. And I know, and System T's right in the chat. War is hell and profitable. I mean, yeah. I mean, you look. We've talked about the military-industrial complex. We've talked about lots of interesting transactions over the years. And so when you see something like this, I know you say it's not surprising, quote unquote. But it's still tragic, and it's still terrible, and it's something that, honestly, if I had a magic wand, you'd wipe this away, because this is not how we're supposed to be as people.
I feel like this situation with the Palestinians and the situation in Yemen are one of the two largest tragedies that are really getting very little attention, at least here in the States.
Yeah.
One thing that's getting a lot of attention, though, is the fact that it looks like North Korea is trying to play hardball, trying to get a little leverage in their negotiations with Trump.
North Korea now says it may call off Kim Jong-un's meeting with President Trump.
What?
Shocker. Whoa, this is breaking news.
So surprised.
Fox News, CNN News Alerts. Oh, my
Holy
God.
smokes.
Unbelievable. And don't forget CBS, ABC.
This is CNN
Breaking news from John Dickerson. And a Fox News alert for John Dickerson.
North Korea now says it may call off Kim Jong-un's meeting with President Trump over U.S. demands to denuclearize the Korean peninsula. North Korea's first vice minister of foreign affairs said in a statement overnight, quote, if the United States is trying to drive us into a corner to force our unilateral nuclear abandonment, his country would have to, quote, reconsider our proceeding to the North Korea-U.S. summit.
That is in response to something that John Bolton said in an interview that I'll play a little bit of in the overtime. Yeah.
It's one of those situations where you're first off you're trying to do something that's obviously never been done before, with a sitting president sitting down with a North Korean leader of any era, right? And so you're North Korea. You're saying we don't 100% obviously know their motives in this whole situation, especially in regards to South Korea. But let's play a what-if scenario for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
You're North Korea, and maybe you're genuine. Let's say you're finally genuine. You want to make a change. You want to go a positive direction. And then you constantly hear from the other side, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this.
That's not new per se.
Is it?
Here's my thinking.
Okay.
And I could be completely wrong. My current framework for viewing the North Korea story is I think they were getting a little bit of side money. I believe John Bolton when he says they're getting a little bit of side money from Iran. And now that the Iran deal is in place and all that side money's been cut off, even though we're out of it. But all the other nations are still in it. And they devastated their test site. You know, now there was another
Yeah,
report
but
that came out, like they even moved the mountain a little bit. So they've completely devastated their test site. Their money's been cut off from their Iran sugar daddy.
Yeah.
It's possible that they have no choice, and now they just want to try to get the best deal possible, and so now they have an opportunity to play a little bit of hardball. I don't know.
Yeah. But then that's something you wouldn't just call off the talks altogether.
Yeah, that's why I think it's hardball.
Yeah.
But I am starting to think this is not going to go the direction Trump wants. I am starting to smell that.
Well, I think, so here's the ultimate question. Does he go back to calling him Little Rocket Man?
They're still playing nice. They say they are continuing on, that the summit will continue. Their plans are to move forward.
Major Garrett is at the White House. Major, what are you hearing from administration officials? Do they believe this is a negotiating ploy?
Well, good morning. Today, President Trump finds himself in a situation many North Korea experts predicted he might in the weeks leading up to this potential summit. What is that? A place where North Korea is showing hesitation and putting new demands on the table. Now, for months, I think it's fair to say, President Trump has been the unpredictable force in these conversations. Now, Kim Jong-un is playing the same game. How is he playing it? By trying to redefine what it means to abandon nuclear weapons and how evidence of that abandonment would be confirmed. North Korea objects to U.S. inspections, U.S. destruction of its underlying nuclear weapons technology. So far, all the White House will say is that it will continue to coordinate closely with allies and independently react and judge what the North Koreans have said.
That's an interesting way to put that.
I think they just want to confirm what's going on over there.
Yeah, maybe media reports have it slightly off is what they're saying.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, Mr. Chase.
Not sure either.
I'm not sure. Well, buddy, what do you say? That's some heavy stuff.
Yes.
Should we just shake it off a little bit, get our sax going on
You
in
know,
here? What do
I'm good to kind of stretch it out, reach deep into the sack, and go ahead and say hi to Club 33. Hey, Club 33, I love you guys. Thank you for heading on over
Man,
to
that
Patreon.
Is nice. That's sweet. That's
I do.
Nice of you.
These guys are great. I talk to them every week and give them ideas. And by the way, today's art for the Club 33 post on Patreon was from me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Really?
I did some modifying, some little Photoshop. If you can identify the picture, you get bonus points.
I'll give you a
next
little
week.
bed here. I'll give you a
that's
little.
right.
Here, I'll give you a little music bed. There you go.
I like this. This is
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Veritona writes in and says, hey, would rather it is the U.S. pulling out of Syria, Africa, and Israel, but doubt anything save a catastrophic natural disaster. Nothing will stop the military-industrial complex from total world annihilation. Eesh.
Easy for you to say.
I know, that sucks. On the home front, UK is finally waking up to the mass murder going on in Gaza and trying to do the right thing, quote unquote, by trying to get an independent inquiry started, but of course are being obstructed by the United States, who has called the massacre Israeli, quote, restraint. Really, it beggars belief that the U.S. establishment can cry foul of Russia meddling in U.S. politics when the rest of the world can see Israel is demonstrating how the tail wags the dog. Over a dozen journalists have been shot and killed, and even the Doctors Without Borders are calling for restraint. Add this to the EU's disenchantment with the U.S. over GDPR, and now the U.S.-Iran sanctions by not using dollars anymore for Iranian oil trading.
I saw that story. I almost don't even believe that. So just a side note.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
The story there is that the EU may continue to buy oil. Like I didn't read the whole thing, so I could be getting this wrong. But they're going to buy oil from Iran, and they're just not going to use the U.S. greenback. That seems like that'd really piss off the U.S.
Yeah.
I'll try to toss a link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, one has to wonder how long this can continue before the American people see what the rest of the world sees and does something about it. And I think that's weirdly what it, when it comes down to, getting to those media sources is just an opinion, and actually engaging in getting clear information. And I think that's very vital, especially now more than ever. And then finally, Casey writes in and says, I think we should be pulling out of every single war zone that we can. I really hope that we can get something accomplished with the DRPK, that's North Korea, and I think that it was an extremely stupid mistake to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal. Hey, if you want to be a part of Club 33, there's a couple spots open right now. Head on over to patreon.com/unfilter, and if you are a member of Club 33, always look for my Patreon message that I send out, exclusive to Patreon Club 33 members every Wednesday morning, and you can be part of the SAC.
And just a bit of admin, we mentioned last week that we had about 113 patrons that were not current, that their cards have been declined or something like that, as things
Actually,
change.
quite a few people refreshed.
Yeah. So I think we're down to I think it's somewhere in the 90s still. So it's like low 90s, high 80s. So if you have been a patron for a while and you haven't logged in and checked your account, maybe do that for us, because it makes the numbers look a little off. It looks like things are going a little better than they are when it's nearly 100 folks. Now, we do have a great new batch of patrons that have come on, like super rock solid support to step up and close some of the gap. We have 11 patrons this week to announce.
Yay!
Yeah. So you guys will be getting your thank you at the top of the overtime here in just a little bit. So thank you very much. But in the meantime, one more, I guess.
It's a double.
It is kind of exciting because now it's time to get into the high note.
Mommy needs a joint.
Mommy.
Now, you remember last week I said I think we're going to start to see a trend about cannabis helping with autism?
Yes.
Well, boy, did I have a smattering of clips to choose from this week. I think I saw at least 3 separate reports on cannabis helping autism. It's picking up, the story. It's funny how these come in spurts, right? Remember how we had that 11-year-old girl for a little while that kept going around?
It's obviously...
And then it was like this military.
Yeah, a lot. Obviously, people listen to our show.
Yeah.
And, we thank you so much for all you guys out there and gals that listen.
And now we're on the autism train. Here we go, everybody. Another mom whose life has been changed. They've moved across the country to save their child with pot.
Since marijuana was legalized in Colorado, it has been touted as a treatment for all kinds of physical and mental ailments, and that includes autism. Tonight, our Rick Salinger introduces us to a family that says marijuana has been a miracle drug for their son.
Oh, yeah, the news is here to talk to you.
Colt may look like your ordinary 10-year-old boy.
Hi.
But his family feels there has been a transformation. They credit medical marijuana for taming his severe autism. They had been living in Arizona.
I'm sitting at my wit's end crying, not knowing what I'm going to do for my son. But I knew he could have a better quality of life.
Stories and videos of autistic children harming themselves, then finding relief through marijuana, have brought many to this state.
I knew that if I came here to Colorado, that I would be protected, that I could get Colt his medical card, and I could start treating him with cannabis.
Colt qualified due to a rare skin condition. His mother began giving it to him in different forms, vaping and homemade tinctures with strong levels of the psychoactive component THC.
I make this probably about once a week.
From their own plants,
Try to grab what I think is 28 grams.
Jamie showed us how she bakes.
All right, first off, what you think? You buy yourself a scale. I mean, serious?
She did have it on. Didn't she have it on a scale there?
Well, I don't know. What she's like, what I think is 28.
I think she's a little nervous. Let's see.
Jamie showed.
No, you're right. She doesn't use a scale. Get a scale, for God's sake.
If you want to be exact with what you're doing.
She's like, I don't care.
Notice how she bakes.
Into the oven.
It sounds like he said, notice how she baits, doesn't it? Right there.
What I think is 28 grams.
Jamie showed us how she bakes.
Into the oven.
Great.
This is how you
take
bake.
that.
Oh,
And
so
mixes
there's
the
a scale
cannabis
there.
with coconut oil to create what she considers a miracle drug for her son.
They literally just walked you through in this report how to make pot oil.
Thank you, CBS Denver.
Can you believe this?
What a...
This is the years we live in now.
Chris, 5 years ago, if I would have told you that
you would have just
local news is going to tell you how to make your own tinctures, would you believe me? You'd be like, shut up.
They actually just walked you through the steps. Maybe that's why New York City is planning to make big changes in how they enforce marijuana infractions.
If you're spotted doing this, smoking marijuana in New York City,
you will be
it could
tased.
lead to your arrest, even under the relaxed marijuana enforcement of the administration of Bill de Blasio. But he made clear today that's all changing.
That's why today I'm announcing that the NYPD will overhaul and reform its policies related to marijuana enforcement in the next 30 days.
By this time next month, the NYPD will no longer arrest people for smoking marijuana in public. Cy Vance, the Manhattan District Attorney, this afternoon announced he won't prosecute such cases.
The grandchild of stop and frisk is marijuana arrest.
This seems like actually a pretty big deal. And everybody seems like they're on board with this idea.
You know, for New York City, that's a huge deal. That is a total huge deal because the Reverend there said that is true, and it is true. I mean, stop and frisk replaced this, and you know, cops were using the slightest of reasons to harass people, and now that's gone.
Now,
or going away.
You, as a connoisseur of local news, I think will notice there is a certain excitement in this report. And it always comes back down to that money, about making that money off of cannabis. And again, this is what really, in the good old U.S. of A., is going to drive legalization across the country. You can hear how once they get a taste, they're all in.
Yep.
It's bigger than gambling. It's money, and the excitement runs everywhere.
On News 5, your first look inside one of the first medical marijuana growers in Ohio. East Lake's cultivation plant, one of just 12 of its kind here, isn't just making progress on its facility, it's ready to start hiring.
Our Tara Molina takes us on a tour of that plant tonight.
They broke ground just a few months ago, but you can see Buckeye Relief here in Eastlake has already come a long way.
Ooh, we are excited, aren't we?
Wow.
Yeah. Ooh, this is exciting.
Time to go to Ohio.
Ooh.
Months ago, but you can see Buckeye Relief here in Eastlake has already come a long way. They're set to be up and running by the end of this summer, and they're going to need some new employees to do it. Seeing it now, it's almost hard to believe. The first conversation about bringing medical marijuana to Eastlake happened just about 2 years ago.
Nobody's ever seen anything like what we're doing here because this is the highest technology ever deployed.
And
I'm gonna stop here for a second. So this is something that I've noticed as I've watched these stories over and over and over again, is the security requirements of these grow operations are so extreme that they often involve bringing in new kinds of security and
biometrics,
innovations to building design that are not common and are expensive, and bring in expensive contractors, and it's just great for the city. And that's one of the interesting things is, not only is it bringing in a certain kind of construction, but it's a real premium kind that the cities are just happy to take a cut from.
Nobody's ever seen anything like what we're doing here because this is the highest technology ever deployed.
And in just a few more months, that technology will be at work inside these rooms, with a company that will be among the first cultivating medical marijuana in Ohio.
We will complete in July.
But a lot happened in the 2 years leading up to this. Buckeye Relief forged a partnership with the city of Eastlake, a city whose mayor says needed a boost.
It's going to help out with our economic growth.
They purchased this land.
We sold the property for $300,000.
Applied for a license with the state, and
We broke ground on December 1st, the day after we received our provisional cultivator license.
they were the top scoring applicant of the 185 who submitted. One of 12 awarded with provisional licenses to operate level 1 cultivation facilities.
We're pioneer. You know, we're in with the top group in the whole state.
And owner Andy Rayburn says he's waiting on 2 more now. A dispensary license expected at the end of this month, and an extraction license expected at the end of June, which would mean more jobs here in Eastlake.
So, Chris, you know, I've been thinking maybe it's time for us to start Northwest Cannabis Consultants LLC,
Jeez.
and we help implore new technologies and networks.
We can help them deploy IT infrastructure. We can help them deploy online media presence,
social podcasting.
Who's going to be the first
YouTube
large
producing.
cannabis shop to crack podcasting? We can help them do it. You and
Absolutely,
I.
we can
Northwest
do it.
Cannabis Consulting.
LLC.
Let's figure that out, yeah. All right, buddy. Well, like we said, next week is going to be a little bit of a weird one, so why not tune in and see how it goes? We'll do it on a Wednesday. Hopefully everything goes okay. You can find out by watching live, jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for those live times.
Yes.
We're going to give it a go, trying to keep that updated as I'm on the road, but you can always follow us on the Twitter to get a little more current taste of what's happening. Find Chase over at
N-U-N-E-S.
Nice.
I'm the verified checkmark one,
Ooh.
not the Devin one. No, I'm the real legit one.
Yeah.
You can also check me out over at geekgamer.tv.
All right.
Throwing a lot of pinball content up there. So if
like
you
that.
love pinball, you love geeky and gaming stuff, please come on over and check it out.
I will.
Chris, what about you? You
Me?
do the Twitter stuff.
Little
People
me?
can get ready for your trip and
Sure.
follow you along.
Yeah, in fact, if you're on my route to Austin, Texas, I'd love to say hi.
Hey.
I love meeting up with the Unfilter audience at ChrisLAS on Telegram and on Twitter. If you're in my route, I'll have the tracker, jupiterbroadcasting.com/rover. Also, a plug for the show page, unfilter.show. All the links for everything we talked about today, unfilter.show/280, and /subscribe for all the ways to get the show every single week. The overtime's coming up, but if you gotta go, I just want to say right here, right now, thanks so much for making it this week's episode of the Unfilter Show. There is a bunch of more stuff in the overtime.
Yes.
It's dense.
There's dessert.
It's high protein.
Yes.
But in the meantime, if you're ready to go and you gotta get out of here, well then I think, hopefully, we'll see you back here next week.
Fuck the EU.
I just can't.
I do whine because I want to win.
Oh, boom. Now, did we get a title out of any of this shenanigans?
Well, I know a place that we could probably go to.
Let's
and
find
see.
out.
That'd
A
be
one,
JB Titles.
A two,
Decker.
a three. Probably, let's see here. Make America Leak Again. Mutually Assured Manipulation. That's not bad. Falling Down. Nobody Wins was, except for I misspelled it because I was typing it fast during the intro, was my suggestion. War for Sale's not bad either.
Ooh.
Wag the Dog.
You know, I do like Nobody Wins because we did have a good chat about that because it's true. I mean, really, the only people that win is the military-industrial complex.
It's a pretty big downer. Yeah, I wouldn't say nobody wins. That's not necessarily true, is it? It's just all of us cogs don't win.
Exactly. The commonlings, as we are.
I kind of am preferring mutually assured manipulation.
That's good too. I like that one too.
Now, what's the art for that though? Is it something with the Palestinians? Is it Trump? Is it Bolton? Is it?
It could be any of the above.
What is it though? See, recently we had Trump for the Iran deal, and before that we had Bolton. So probably shouldn't do those. I could do Netanyahu. Boy, that could get us.
Oh, that could.
Isn't that funny? Even just that is dangerous. That's how like the troll army is with that whole topic. It's intense. You would have hoped that the internet would have been an age of sharing information and knowledge and a place for people to be scholarly and debate about things. But instead, it's turned into partisan, emotional flame wars. It's yeah. Now I see Chase sad. You made me sad. See, damn it.
Well, you know, it's like I want some optimism. I want to feel good about our potential future. And right now it's just hard. I mean, you see how, this net neutrality situation is going on, where I know the Senate, passed the resolution, but, it doesn't look good in the House. And obviously it sounds like the president would veto it. And it's one of those situations where, it has a huge impact on not only what we do,
and
but
it's hard
on
to see,
everybody.
And a lot of this stuff, like the situation in the Middle East, it's really hard to see how this is going to be a positive thing.
It's
like
not
going to war with Iran is going to be,
And actually, there's no trolls really going after me or anything. But it's just,
Here's how I think about it.
It's tough when you hear negative all the time.
The one thing I do know is that sometimes really awful things in life sometimes are like the fertilizer for things that turn out to be really great.
Right.
Like I just have had several experiences in my life where I thought, shit, this is really awful. And then, a couple of years later, it turns out that I wouldn't be in a position where I'm at if I hadn't gone through X, Y, and Z.
That's true.
So sometimes when you're in the middle of it all, it's hard to see the positive side. But when you look back at it with years of distance, it's like, oh, yeah, wow, that really was hell at the time.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, you guys have a great one.
Yeah. So I think, let's see. there's a few things in the queue coming up on the JB feed, so I would say go get yourself the All Shows feed. That way you don't miss nothing. But I'll get the latest releases. We've released a whole bunch of stuff in the last couple of days up on the live stream if you're sticking around. But thanks for being here. Say goodbye, Chase.
Goodbye, Chase.